Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Ali Coram and Ed Carson here with a breakdown of the action in today's session. And Ed, it was a little bit of a chaotic day there for a little while, but stocks ultimately shrugged off that weakness to close in positive territory.
Yeah, Bitcoin sort of looked like it was going to derail the rally, but ultimately a strong day. GlobalFoundries, Albemarle, and UnitedHealth all made some bullish moves today.
We'll take a look at those stocks, but first, let's check in on the major indexes. So today we had the NASDAQ up 0.5%, the S&P 500 up 0.6% today, the Dow in the lead up 1%, and coming up the back of the pack, Russell 2000 small caps up about 0.25% or so into the close. So good to see another day of gains. The NASDAQ still lagging, but it is coming up to a key shorter term moving average.
Yeah, the NASDAQ, as you say, is lagging. It's got to come up to the 21-day line, see if it can get through that. It's not, during this actual rally attempt, it has not gotten to the 50-day line. So getting above that and then the recent highs would be important, I think, to really give a sense that the rally is on some sound footing. So there's that. Obviously, cloud computing and some of the mega cap stocks have been real drags on the NASDAQ. Chips are coming up a little bit, but a lot of tech is still in trouble.
Right. Let's also take a look at the S&P 500 because it's faring better. And it's back above the 50-day line, extending gains after closing above that key moving average in Monday's session. It's getting closer to its highs from last week, right around 3,900. But it seems like, as you said, for the NASDAQ, same for the S&P 500, it would be great to see it clear this level here, right around 3,900 or so.
Yeah, and a lot of key levels around there, a lot of lows, a lot of highs in that area. I think that, yeah, that'll be important. So look at that. I think one thing investors need to know, we're still market under pressure. This has been encouraging these past few days, but still want to get above some levels. There's not a whole lot of stocks to buy. I mean, some are extended, some are setting up. And then we have, we'll see how the midterm elections turn out and what the reaction is to that, but then
Right.
the CPI on Thursday. So I think that that's something to keep in mind while there's some encouraging action. We saw how quickly the gains went away today with a little bit of Bitcoin news. So just keep that in mind, that we could easily tumble back down again.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good point is we don't know what the reaction is going. We don't know what tomorrow will bring, whether there is a news event or not. But what we can do is be prepared for various scenarios. So I think, like you said, on the downside, knowing when and where to back away with your individual holdings, or maybe in anticipation, maybe preemptively looking in some gains even. But then also on the upside, having a list of quality watch list stocks, because as you and I both know, Ed, sometimes the buying window for some of those leading stocks can be pretty slim.
Yeah, I think those are all really good suggestions. You got to be ready, and it's sometimes it's better preparing rather than trying to jump ahead of it. Let's see how things go, and then if conditions improve, that's when you take advantage.
Make your move. All right. Well, a quick look at the Dow and the Russell 2000. I mean, Ed, the Dow just on fire here, at least in comparison to some of the other major indexes. And already this week, we're 2 days in, but if it continues at this rate, it seems like it would decisively clear this trend line from the highs. So it would be the first of the major indexes to really break its downtrend. Again, it's the Dow. It's not like it's S&P 500 or NASDAQ that's doing this. So, how excited should we be at this point? But it is notable.
Yeah, and there's some good stocks that are helping to make this move. And you're right. If this were the S&P or the NASDAQ, we'd be talking about a very strong market rally. So maybe this is one time when the Dow really takes its lead. But yeah, it'd be nice to see the other indexes show similar action.
Yes, but we'll take it. And then IWM, the Russell 2000, got close to its 40-week line and backed away last week, but trying to regain its footing this week. Also adding to the mix, let's take a look at the 10-year Treasury Yields year, TNX, dipping a little bit today, still at very elevated levels. But, when it comes off, that is maybe a little bit of fuel for stocks. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, that's helping a little bit. Just anytime, again, we'll see how Thursday turns out. That's why there's such a close relationship. Dollar, though, I think has quietly become a huge driver. Even with yields were rising a couple days ago, the dollar was coming down. I think Friday's drop was the biggest drop in years, even so, and that's continuing. If you see that trend, there's a big reason why the rally, because that means all our exports are a little bit cheaper. Profits from overseas look a little better. So this would be a big boost for the profits and for the S&P.
That makes sense, Ed. And we also have to talk about Bitcoin just a little bit more here, Ed. Here's a look at BITO, which tracks the cryptocurrency, down 13% today. What happened here?
Well, there's FTX, which was a few months ago was seen as a potential savior for some of the woes that we had a few months ago. They had a run on that crypto exchange. So Binance has now set a letter of intent to buy it. Now that by itself might be a good thing, but one, it spooked people. Wow, FTX is in trouble, and they're not really sure if Binance will go ahead and buy this thing. So I think people are just feeling more nervous. It's once again reminding people about how a lot of this is uncertain, probably worried about withdrawals. I know that the FTX has a token, and that was down like 80% today. And that's after tumbling for the past few weeks. So a lot of things that people, think, oh, this is going to go up, this is going to up. Well, a lot of these things might go to nothing, not Bitcoin, but definitely a challenge. Just hit a 2-year low, or the lowest in almost 2 years. Definitely a challenging time. Anything that's in the Bitcoin related stocks, really hard hit today.
Yeah, which is why, we don't take the diamond hand approach with our investing strategies. And as active investors, at the very least, maybe you can give something a little bit more room if you are up on it. And if it's still in an uptrend and holding above supporting moving averages, but this is doing anything but that. So looking very weak at this point, and could go down further. We don't know. We don't know how low it'll go at this point. And FTX is that the Matt Damon Fortune Favors the Brave one?
That might be. I forget. I'm sorry, but the founder was on a bunch of covers. Here we go. Here is he going to be the next J.P. Morgan? And another thing is like, I guess not.
Yeah, at the top probably too, because I was kind of right around the advertisement there as well. But anyway, enough about that. Let's move on to look at a compelling chip stock, GFS, GlobalFoundries. A strong move today for the stock, Ed, as you mentioned. Shares up 8.6% today. Strong volume behind the move as well. And a pretty decent close. It closed above 60 and right around its high from a couple of weeks ago, just over 61, and clearing an aggressive entry today.
Yeah, and 61.24 could probably have been seen as a handle entry because of last Thursday's plunge. That handle was just a little too deep to be a proper handle, but you could sort of treat it there. So I think this is in range. It is somewhat. It's getting far from the 50-day line a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you're going to buy this, you really want to try to get close to the entry as possible, because there's definitely some in there. This is a contract chip manufacturer, so it makes chips for others. I think like AMD, Qualcomm, a bunch of others. Strong growth, strong earnings estimate. The revenue was beat by a little bit. The revenue guidance was just fine. So this competes with Taiwan Semiconductor, and there's obviously a lot of geopolitics that weigh into TSM. But this one's a nice move here today.
That it is. Any concerns, though, about just its trading history? I mean, when it came out, it wasn't necessarily a great time for chip stocks shortly after that. But whether it's a new issue or something more established, we do like taking a look at these different time frames on the chart. in addition to the daily chart, taking that step back. Is there anything else to point out, Ed? Because maybe from here it'll go on a nice move, but it hasn't done a whole lot, at least in a sustained fashion up until this point.
Yeah, I think when you compare it to other chip makers and other techs, I mean, as you say, it's been a tough time. The RS line has really improved in the last few months. So it's the highest probably since, February or March. So I with an IPO, tech, and all the stuff that's going on, I'm a little more forgiving here. But that's something to keep in mind. What has it done? What is its history? And, you can say the last couple of times it sort of flashed buy signals, it sold off pretty hard. So I think that you can't say if this thing falls pretty significantly, investors can't just say, oh, yeah, don't worry, this will come right back. I mean, they should never say that, but they should, with a new IPO and such, you can't just, it is definitely relevant because it's had some negative reaction to what's seemingly good news.
Yeah, but a couple of periods here where it's had some nice runs. So maybe play it for a shorter term move until it can prove that it can do something more sustained. I guess guilty until proven innocent, something like that. All right. Yeah. Let's now take a look at Albemarle because lithium stocks looked pretty darn hot today. So far for the week, Albemarle up over 7%. That coming from today and on the heels of a really nice upside reversal late last week. The stock getting above the 300 level and then some, clearing an early entry here.
Yeah, there's that trend line, and also the short-term highs. So yesterday it closed right around those levels. Either way, so maybe you could have bought it yesterday,
but no volume.
No volume, so it would have been really hard. It really wasn't moving much. So today, if you jumped in, this is one of those situations where there's the window opportunity, not a great window opportunity because there was that early entry. You'd say, well, no, it got up to about its buy point, but it's getting pretty high above its 50-day line. I think this is definitely, we've talked about the importance of early entries. And, until a couple of days ago, there was briefly an odd looking double bottom in there. So I think that short-term levels was pretty valid, and it's moved up so much from Thursday's lows. That followed earnings. Obviously, ultimately, the market reacted well to the very strong growth, even though the revenue wasn't a blowout. So you look at those numbers, that's pretty impressive. If it pauses here for a while and the 50-day line can catch up somewhat, then maybe there could be a high handle or some kind of shelf. I mean, just something. I don't know. I mean, the problem is that Albemarle and these lithium stocks don't really pause. They make huge, violent moves up and down. Yeah. So while I'd like to see a handle, I don't know if we're going to get it.
Yeah, the last handle looks like that.
Yeah, that's not the handle we would be looking for.
No,
you're right.
No, we want something tight. Yeah, I think that's what this needs. You're so right. It just needs to tighten up.
But in comparison, this consolidation is tighter than what we had before. Yeah, so you saw the gyrations, and then you look on a weekly and go, oh, that's pretty calm. Yeah, that's definitely something to note. So if you didn't get into it early, you might want to wait a while because this could easily come back down. It definitely has shown big volatile moves.
But impressive, no doubt, and an area that we've been tracking for a while, especially you, Ed, at the forefront of all of our EV coverage. So this definitely right up in there with the interesting ones in that theme. Let's also take a look at UnitedHealth having a good week, poking back above a handle here, maybe a new smaller handle on top of this bigger handle, or maybe this could even be considered a base of its own at this point, but clearing a round number as well at 550. Didn't quite have the strong volume here today, Ed, but this is a health insurer that's looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's showing pretty. This one, it's still clearly in range. While the other ones are making these big moves, it's less likely to have the big sell-off. All of them have earnings now out of the way, which is a positive. That is really nice to see. So whether you see the downstroke of that handle or just use the old buy point and close right at the buy point, actually. So however you want to use it, it's definitely it's definitely actionable in that regard. and it has strong growth, and decent growth going forward. So this is one that has a track record. I think if you go on a monthly, this used to be a long-term leader. It went off of that because there was a lot of politics, and then there was COVID. So there were some weird things that just were just way out there. But even then, it wasn't terrible. But it seems to be sort of resuming sort of a status where just longer term, there's trending outperforming the S&P, and there's nothing wrong with a stock that outperforms the S&P, pretty well over time. So you could sort of treat this as a long-term leader. Not that you need to. I mean, it's it's something that might provide some steady growth over time.
Right. Well, I guess the reason to maybe think about treating it like a long-term leader in terms of at least buying, where to buy it, position size, and the expectations is that this isn't a screamer. I mean, we can see this is not a stock that makes high octane moves. I mean, you do have, this period over the summer where it did go on a nice run. And of course, recently, since the earnings report, it's definitely picked up the pace, but you just have to be aware of the personality of some types of stocks. But this is one where if you can get the right entry and have that patience, that there could be that opportunity for catching a big piece of steady move of outperformance.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe you don't want all your portfolio in this, but then maybe you don't want all your portfolio into something like Albemarle or something like that, where they have these big gyrations every day. So just know the stock, know yourself when you make these investments.
Sounds like a plan, Ed. Thank you so much for that. And thanks everyone for watching. Just a quick little note, coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight, I'm going to be on Twitter Spaces along with Joe Fahmy and a couple of other great guests, some good stock market minds. We're going to be talking about current market conditions, sectors, and stocks to watch. Joe Fahmy is also going to be our guest on IBD Live this Friday. So maybe this will just be a little bit of a preview. So looking forward to getting his updated thoughts on the market and what he has his focus on right now. So looking forward to that. Check it out on Twitter tonight. If you're not following me yet, you go ahead and follow me and Ed. Ed's a great follow on Twitter. So I'm at Alissa Coram and he is at IBD_E Carson. So we'll see you there tonight on Twitter. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow after a fun and informative morning on IBD Live. Investors.com/IBD Live for the details on that. We'll see you there.